Good morning, everyone. First, I would like to introduce myself. I am Joby Panao from Bataan Peninsula State University, Orani campus, and I am your moderator for this online roundtable discussion. And we have here the four different sectors to complete the discussion about different teaching techniques in PE and sports amidst COVID-19 pandemic. Since we are three only, each person will have two roles. For legal and global or international representative, we have here Miss Monique Guinto.
Good day, everyone. I am Monique Guinto. I'm in the role of legal sector and the global or international sector.
For education and practitioner representative, we have here Miss Ynah Bringula.
Good morning, everyone. I am Ynah Bringula, representing practitioner and education sector.
To formally start this online roundtable discussion, let me introduce to you first physical education as a curriculum in sports. Physical education is a course taught in school that focuses on developing physical fitness and the ability to perform and enjoy day-to-day physical activities with ease. Kids also develop skills necessary to participate in a wide range of activities such as soccer, basketball, swimming, etc. Regular physical education classes prepare kids to be physically and mentally active, fit and healthy into adulthood. An effective physical education program should include engaging lessons, trained PE teachers, adequate instructional periods, and students' evaluation. Physical education and sports develop fitness and foster the desire for lifelong participation in physical activity. The high school curriculum prepares students to become highly proficient in one or more sport and or fitness activities for their choice. On the other hand, COVID-19 pandemic, we have lost so many things, opportunities, loved ones, business, education, and more. One of the most things that are affected by the COVID-19 pandemic is education. According to the Philippine news, new normal in education system increased the drop rate of the students because of the reasons such as lack of gadgets, no gadgets at all, someone in their family cannot help them in their module because they weren't able to finish their basic education, cannot adjust in the new normal, etc. Teachers and students are both struggling in this setup. Most are having mental health issues about this new learning, just like how we struggle in this new normal. Teaching the course of PE and sport is considered the most difficult subject to teach as it requires the performance of students. It is hard to think that we cannot do some activities we used to do before because of the pandemic, as well as teaching PE and sports to students. Thus, many sporting events have been canceled due to COVID-19. The main purpose of this roundtable discussion is how educators will teach PE and sport in the new normal setup. So without further ado, let's get started. For the first question, what the what are the observation, practices, causes, and risk factors for the different techniques in teaching PE and sport amidst the COVID-19 pandemic among Bataeños? For education and practitioner, let's have Miss Bringula to share her insight.
Good morning. As the representative of the education and practitioner sector, teachers also had negative feelings about their lack of training to cope with this new experience. By changing the social circumstances in which their practicum took place, the teachers were exposed to new challenges and circumstances for which they were not prepared. We can also see that most of the teachers, students, and even parents are experiencing difficulty in this time of pandemic, especially in teaching PE and sports. I can see that most of the teachers are very hardworking because they tend to do and to find more ways and to have their different teaching techniques in PE and sports for them to give to their students the total quality knowledge and learnings, understandings about the PE and sports. As the COVID-19 pandemic continues to spread all over the world, PE and sports have been disrupted in many aspects, especially those sporting events. So it will be a challenge to the teachers and students on how they can manage to teach and to learn PE and sports in a way that they can give its quality. We all know that physical education and sports are one more the most challenging to teach online and in a modular setup. Different schools have required to provide PE and sports during the pandemic so that the teachers find ways to provide and to fulfill the needs in teaching PE and sports in this time of pandemic. I know that it is hard for the teachers to teach PE and sports in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic because some of the students have been already eliminated PE and sports because they are only staying in their respective houses. But teachers are finding more ways for the students on how they can motivate and encourage their students to give importance and to learn PE and sports in this time of pandemic. We should focus on how we can apply the knowledge and learning to us, especially in this time of pandemic that everyone are having difficulties. This current teaching situation is difficult, but teachers are trying their best to teach students to aid the ignorance and to fulfill the true essence of PE and sports, especially today. Teachers Teachers are a collective capable of adapting to change, as has been shown in this period of forced online teaching without having received prior training and in a situation where the need to provide an urgent response, which will be further explore different techniques in teaching PN sports. Teachers should understand that they have a responsibility to their students to make them feel good and learn as much as possible. Also to motivate their students and themselves because they are facing difficulty about being tired and stressed, which affects their learning and their passion for the possibility of continuing with online teaching.
Thank you for
Thank you
sharing your
very much.
knowledge, Ms. Bringula. I agree with what you have said that teaching PE and sports in the new normal is difficult. Both teachers and students and even their parents are having a hard time adapting to this setup but still trying their very best to survive on it. I also agree that teachers should motivate themselves and their students so that they can surmount together the dilemma we are facing until now. Next, for the legal and global or international representative, may I call on Ms. Guinto.
Okay, thank you. Coronavirus disease, COVID-19 pandemic is profoundly affecting the lives around the globe. Isolation, contact restriction, and economic shutdown impose to complete change to the psychosocial environment of Bataeños and around the world. Uh, Kindergartens and school have been closed, social contacts strongly limited, and out-of-home physical activities canceled. Parents are asked to support their children with homeschooling while at the same time working from home. Aside from worries and anxiety related to COVID-19, unemployment of all affected countries, this has put a lot of pressure on the children, adolescents, and their families, which could result in distress and mental health problems and violence. That's
Thank you, Ms. Guinto, for sharing your knowledge with us. It is true that this pandemic, isolation, economic shutdown, restriction, and limitation completely changed the psychosocial environment of Bataeños and the whole world. For the second question, what are the regulating and statutory policies and guidelines that examine social and economic determinants and related health outcomes of the different techniques in teaching PE and sports amid the COVID-19 pandemic among Bataeños? For education and practitioner, let's have Ms. Bringula to share her insight.
Okay. COVID-19 rapidly caused devastating socio-economic impacts such as income loss, business impacts, and health concerns. And also in schools, this may affect the mental health of the students and teachers because they will innovate in the possible learning setup caused by the pandemic. And it will be difficult for teachers and students who are accustomed to learning in a classroom setup to suddenly go to an online or modular setup. Students were forced to study online with limited access to facilities, and it is difficult to cope up with the situation, especially it is a sudden policy wherein everyone is in shock. Some of the guidelines was staying at home in this time of pandemic, implement the flexible learning for the replacement of the original classroom setup. The stay-at-home policy seems to show that we build or find ideas that we can do to become familiar with the setup of online and modular classes. Also, we can think about how to protect or take care of our mental health today, even if it even if there was a barrier, which is the pandemic. PN sports can't be stopped from helping all of us. The new World Health Organization 2020 guidelines stress that any amount of physical activity is better than none. And yes, it is definitely true because even if we are facing difficulties right now because of the pandemic, we must know how we can also the implementing of the flexible learning which help us to replace the original classroom setup learning for us to have quality knowledge even we are in this time of pandemic wherein we need to do our best to cope up with the situation and protect our mental health. We are all managing additional stress related to the growth of the COVID-19 pandemic and its potential to threaten the health of ourselves. So we need to consider PN sports as part of our lives. We need to give effort to learn more about PN sports to help us, especially in this time of pandemic. Although many things feel beyond our control right now, we do have the ability to be creative and to build and to find more different techniques in teaching PN sports. We may even look back on this difficult time as the turning point when we learned new ways to build our emotional resilience and our physical and mental health. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for your wonderful insight, Miss Bringula. Since we have lost so much because of the pandemic and everything now is new to us, it is indeed true that students has experienced culture shock in school, especially in the PE course, because we weren't able to do PE and sport just like we used to do in face-to-face classes, and anything we would physically do in our home is considered as an exercise. Next, for the legal and global or international representative, let me call on Monique Guinto for her insight.
Okay, thank you. The regulatory and statutory policy to protect students during this crisis is an implementation of CHED Memorandum Order Number 4 Series of 2020 that to ensure that there would be a continuing of learning which from face-to-face classes to shift into flexible learning where CHED organized a massive capacity building training for faculty members, launched the Philippine CHED Connect website for free access to instructional learning materials. Thus, flexible learning is deemed the most appropriate and safest pedagogical approach during pandemic. However, there are mandatory vaccinations to increase the protection to students, teachers, and non-teaching personnel. It is to secure the safety of everyone and it will also lessen the anxiety of individuals because of COVID-19 pandemic. That's it.
Thank you for sharing your beautiful insight, Miss Guinto. I agree with what you have said that even though we are here in this new normal, the education sectors ensures that students are safe in this flexible learning and encourage students to get their vaccine shot against COVID-19 for additional protection and to also lessen the anxiety of students. For the third question, what platforms, best practices, interventions, mechanisms to identify health and socioeconomic consequences of the different techniques in teaching PE and sports amid the COVID-19 pandemic? For education and practitioner, may I call on Ms. Bringula to share her insight?
The best platform in this time of pandemic is the online digital platforms like Google Classroom, Google Meet, and Zoom, and many more that we can use in teaching PN sports, which is the students don't need to go outside just to do some activities. They just need to do activities at their respective houses by means of those platforms because it provides different ways to communicate with the students without exposing to the virus. This can also help to protect the health of the students. Most of the teachers made an adjustments in teaching and learning designs guided by the policies implemented by each institution. Students had difficulty complying with the learning activities and requirements due to limited or no internet connectivity. The best practices is that teachers should motivate and encourage students to do better even if we are in this time of pandemic. Teachers should not scold students who are lack of skills. We knew that everyone is also having a hard time. As a teacher, they need to protect their mental health as well as their students. They should find ways on how they can develop their students' capability to cope up in this today's setup. Teachers should encourage students to remain active. Both teachers and students should also address the importance of their mental health. They should have a training. They should train themselves on how they will use those online digital platforms and on how they will cope up with this flexible learning. It is also important to plan everything. Make sure that before facing on a class, you should be well presented and organized to also encourage social interactions within each other. Educators begin to analyze, examine, observe, and reflect on what they do and how they teach PN and sports in this time of pandemic. It will allow them to discover their own identity as teachers in a critical and reflective way. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your insight, Ms. Bringula. And now, for the legal aspect and global or international representative, may I call on Ms. Guinto to share her insight.
The most accurate platform today is in the online platform. It will lessen the exposure of everyone from this virus. It also provides students and teachers a better communication during this pandemic. Thus, teachers should have a proper training using technology to be effectively contribute in the learning outcomes of students, especially in the program of physical education. Although students with access to digital devices and internet may not be the majority in most countries, supporting governments in establishing effective forms of online education will free up institutional capacities and resources in order to redirect their focus in delivering alternative learning methods for those who students do not have similar opportunities. Thus, this is to encourage the government to give full support to the education system um, today, especially to those students who are less fortunate.
Thank you for sharing your knowledge, Ms. Ginto and Ms. Bringula. I agree with what you have said since we couldn't have face-to-face interaction because of the rising of COVID-19 cases here in the Bataan. We can use platforms like Google Meet, Zoom, Google Classroom, Messenger, YouTube, and other platforms we can use to achieve a quality education. And of course, teachers should know the learning styles of students so that they would know what kind of teaching strategy they will implement to have a quality outcome. Considering the issues and challenges we are facing in teaching physical education and sports, such as how are we going to make our students move in their comfort spaces, or do they have spaces to move around? Can they go out during pandemic? And of course, considering the mental health of students, thus it is a great opportunity for both students and teachers to attend webinars or training for their additional knowledge and experiences since it is online. For the last question, share, present, propose, and explain holistic and integrative approaches to prevent on national and global scale. For education and practitioner, may I call on Ms. Bringula to share her expertise.
During this time, it became clear teachers had to change from face-to-face to virtual communication in a matter of hours, a situation for which they were not trained. As the representative of the education and practitioner sector, the approach here is to make that every teachers and students must know their responsibilities when it comes in this setup wherein we are in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. It is difficult to teach PE and sports in this time, but teachers and students should make sure that they making all the impossible be possible. They must think more techniques and more ways to ensure the safety and the knowledge. PE and sports is not just an easy subject, also not just only a subject. It is very meaningful and it is like a hygiene in our life, which is we cannot be neglected. We can't deny that PE and sports helps us a lot in different aspects in our lives. So that we need to remember that whether in a classroom setup or until now in a modular or online setup, that PE and sports has a huge contribution to all of us. We need to find more ways to improve and deliver what PE and sports wants to deliver to us. Since PE and sports requires manipulation, social interaction, or movement, which is very limited in the space of a house and different of each student. The different teaching techniques will help teachers to develop and to deliver the quality PE and sports to everyone, even if we are in the time of pandemic. As long as with effort, we can achieve the thing we want to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your wonderful insight, Ms. Bringula. And now, for the legal aspect and global or international representative, may I call on Ms. Guinto to share her expertise about this topic.
Okay, thank you. The best approach to this is to ensure that every teachers are all qualified to teach and are technology literate. To integrate learning to their student, even though physical education and sports program are difficult to teach in an online class setup, they should be create their own way to still teach the subject to student, which has to be acceptable and accessible to everyone. Thank
Thank you for sharing your knowledge, Ms. Gintor and Ms. Bringla. It is indeed difficult to teach PE and sport in this new setup. The best approach to this is to ensure that all teachers are knowledgeable enough to teach PE and sports in the new normal, such as manipulating technologies, teaching PE and sports using their effective teaching style to achieve quality education and to achieve the fitness and healthy lifestyles of students despite this pandemic. Thank you so much, everyone, for sharing your expertise about the topic entitled Different Teaching Techniques in PE and Sports amidst COVID-19. For the last part of this roundtable discussion, may I ask everyone to share your advocacy about promoting mental health and preventing violence, employing physical education. Starting with education and practitioner representative, may I call on Ms. Bringula.
Okay, thank you very much. Mental health is when we can identify the emotional and social well-being. It affects how we feel, think, and act, and mental health is very important, especially in these days wherein we are facing difficulties. There are many ways we can do for our mental health. This can be on how to value yourself. Always remember that our mental health is very important and valuing ourselves help us to protect our mental health. We must also take care of our body and surround ourselves with good people to avoid stress. We must support those persons who are in need. There are different violence that can harm many of us, and sometimes they are employing physical education and our mental health. And there are different issues involving physical education. But we all know that physical education provides an opportunity to make and to help students on how important life lessons and skills are. These are things like exercising, eating a balanced and healthy meals, opening up to other people in your life, taking a break when you need to, remembering something you are grateful for and getting a good sleep. Can be helpful in boosting your emotional health. We should protect our mental health and physical education at all costs. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Bringula, for sharing your beautiful advocacy to us. For the next advocacy, from the legal aspect and global or international representative, may I call on Ms. Guinto.
Thank you. The advocacy I will speak is that we encourage everyone to participate in physical education. Because this pandemic arising and challenging us every day, we encourage to do physical activities so sedentary lifestyle won't affect us. Like, ito yung merong, naririnig na ako. Yes. Sedentary lifestyle yung sumasakop ngayon sa atin kasi dahil nga hindi tayo makalabas, hindi rin tayo makagawa ng physical activities sa outside. We encourage na kahit sa loob ng bahay, sa your personal space, na doon na maggawa ng mga physical activities. So, may iwasan natin yung mga diseases tulad ng diabetes, cardiovascular diseases. In that way, may iwasan din natin yung makakatulong tayo sa society natin na mabawasan yung mga magiging pasyente ng mga ng mga frontliners natin. In that way, mas tataas yung economic stability ng lugar natin or ng country natin. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Guinto, for sharing your beautiful advocacy to us. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your beautiful advocacies to promote mental health and prevent violence, employing physical education. And I also want to share my advocacy. As a future PA practitioner, we need to take care of our students' mental health for them to continue learning and execute those movements to achieve fitness and active lifestyle inside or outside of the classroom or even in an online platform. Before we finally end this session, may I request everyone to show their hashtag for a photo opportunity. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Isa pa. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us until the last moment of this activity. I hope you enjoy and learn something as you listen to the different answers from the panels. Thank you.